Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. After work, we always have Monday blues. So I'm very thankful to see so many of y'all can make it. And today, as usual, end of the month, we are going to talk about what the next month's energy brings and what the global trends will be from BC's research. So this month, I think the theme is month of breaking apart. Later on, shall talk about it, how the global trends breaks apart in this talk. So as usual, the talk agenda will start with an introduction, then disclaimer, then a brief recap of last month's forecast from me and BC also from his side, and then the current month's influence of 5-element energy and the I Ching for the month as well. And then also November's 2023's geopolitical political forecast by BC and the summary by both of us. Okay. Yeah, this disclaimer that we would like to go through. So the content that we have here is purely based on our studies in the global trend based on the 5 elements Chinese astrology together with research from multiple sources, which you can use as a guideline in your investment decision. Do exercise caution in investment, especially in such volatile situation, and do your own research if you have any companies that you want to invest, especially in the stock market. And we will not give any stock advice because we are not financial advisor. Okay. So let's recap on the October month. Actually, October month, there is a lot of things going on, especially with the Israel-Hamas war. And here, last month, it was actually a rob wealth month for the people. So generally, there will be conflicts, and this results into war as predicted. And there are also government collaboration that's going on. I see there are a few. And then we can also see the property market challenges, very obvious, especially with the earth here coming up. And then inflation continuing, I think is becoming worse. Then in line with our year 2023 forecast, I think for those who have bought our books, just go back and check. I have also predicted that, actually the 5 elements energy, even in the Mother Earth Oracle also says that the global event or the global situation will turn worse after second half of the year, and especially end of the autumn. Okay, so next month we will go into the winter months already. Okay. And this is all the headlines that we have here. We can see that the fighting that is escalating, the war that happens in multiple areas of Middle East. Actually, Middle East is considered as the center of the earth. So the center, for those who know Feng Shui is actually a 5 there. The original position of number 5. So that's why Middle East is always quite unstable. But in the past, also in China, because the feng shui was also in China. Sometimes they tend to, to put it from the China's perspective when the center of the 5 yellow. Okay. So this is the Iraq and Iran war. I think we have also predicted in our unlock your wealth potential as well that it comes much, much earlier than we anticipated. And then another thing is that the inflation remains high. In fact, the rice price has gone up. I do not know whether you all realize that the rice price has gone up quite recently or so in Malaysia. Do you realize that I was told that it was like, about 20 to 30%, 20% more, right?
Yeah, from 26 ringgit to 33.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. So it was about that as well. So from here we will talk about the month November 2023's energy. So month November is actually a very special month. If you remember the 八字 for the year, the Li Chun chart, the Li Chun five elements energy chart, the day pillar is koi water, is water. Okay, so that means I already says that everyone on earth, every human being on earth this year is represented by Koi water. And this month, there's a lot of water in the chart already. You can see the year pillar already has chart. And the month pillar, this one is a pure pillar of water. That means upstairs, the heavenly stem and the earthly branch is the same one. So they are actually pure chi. Consider as pure chi. Like, if there's hidden some hidden this one because normally for Bazi study, I like to consider only the main energy of the branch. Okay, so you can see that now because if you remember the chart, the day and also the hour has fire, right? Go back to the Li Chun chart, and now we have water here and the mana, so there will be water and fire clash. There will be even more conflict expected now. Water and fire is always a clash, right? Then there will also be some major collaboration. Okay, and people are also fighting for wealth in the chart because so many people are so many same element appear now. So I think this is what is anticipated. So that's why the war will also escalate and with the month below that the people comes up is exposed. So the element of us is exposed. So it could also have quite severe or quite bad economic situation. Okay. So the month's hexagram, this one is very interesting, unfortunately. Okay, is actually split apart. You can see all the broken lines here. That means the earth, this is actually representing earth element. This tree here, the trigram here is actually Kun is earth, Mother Earth. And then here is actually Kengua. Kengua here is actually a mountain. But all this comes up, you can see that everything already splits. It's just one top one, the sixth line is holding this together. So anytime the last, this is the straight line here, the here like this is called a yang line. This and this is called a yin line. That means the broken lines. Okay, so even the image already tells you that something is going to break apart. Okay, so expected that economy downturn with market instability and financial crisis will continue. Maybe it will escalate also. And this also signify breaking apart means that maybe we are breaking away from the old era already. The new one will come up. That means birth of the new era into the period 9 already. And there could also be breakthrough risk discovery in technology for the month of November. Okay. So I think this is all for my part. Later on, we will answer the question from Augustine. Okay, so over to you, PC. You want to I think you better share from your screen. Is that okay with you, PC? Yeah, okay,
Sure,
can.
sure.
Mm.
Okay. So, yeah, just now Evelyn say about new discovery, and I think just today there's already a new discovery, yeah, in a sense that new breakthrough in technology. Two in fact also originated from China. One is that China has come up with a new material that will actually improve the efficiency of solar cell. Uh, it is totally different from silicon. Okay, I think it's called pyrorite, something like this. I'm not too sure what's the name, but it is no longer silicon, based on silicon. And also today came out that China is able to use bacteria to clean wastewater for semiconductor production. Because those who are involved in the semiconductor industry, you will realize that it takes in a lot of water. And water is becoming a very important resource because of expanding global population and also because of drought, climate change, and such. So preservation of water has become very, very important. And scientists in China have come up with a method of using bacteria to clean wastewater so that that water can be recycled for semiconductor use. So already there's two breakthrough technology at the end of October. So going back to some of our prediction, well, last month we mentioned that there is high potential for US government shutdown because on the very last day, there's still no news out that they can abort, that they will come up with a new budget. But what happened was at the 11th hour, they came out with a proposal not to solve the problem, but to kick the problem further down the road. Okay, which means there's going to be another looming battle on the budget in mid-November. And because right now we are moving increasingly close to a war economy, that budget in November could be more tailored towards supporting the war in Middle East as well as in Ukraine. So inflation in the Eurozone did not rise as expected. Now, this could be an early signal that the EU could be trending towards a deflation as the industrialization takes its toll on the economy. In fact, the European PMI, as I will show later on, is not picking up, but instead is falling deep into negative territory. And because PMI is normally a survey that gives a first-hand knowledge of the direction of the economy, as long as it stays depressed in contraction and without any inflation, then looks very likelihood that Europe will enter into a deflation or worst case, a depression. So the Chinese real estate market did not recover as anticipated after a short burst. Right now, it's back in the doldrums. And the conflict in Europe was overshadowed by the conflict in Middle East. While we expected Ukraine war to intensify, we did not expect a war between Hamas and Israel. Although in most of our works, we have predicted that there will be conflict in Middle East. But it has more to do with the political situation there, involving Syria and Iran, more than the whatever that happens internally between Gaza and Israel. So, but nevertheless, our forecast that the Middle East remains a place of high geopolitical tension is right. So we anticipate that there will be period of intense conflict in October, and so far it has proven to be correct. Now, where we got right, I think we get a lot of things that were right in October. We forecast that the oil price would go up, there'll be demand for uranium, and what happened is that both oil price and uranium price remain elevated in October, extending from the gains in September. So here you can see that oil has remained within this range on the higher side rather than what happened during the middle of the year. And uranium has seen a major spike. Some of our members in our Telegram, um, which we had as since last year. We also share with them about uranium, and I think some of them would be quite happy if they bought into some of the uranium stocks. So the other thing is that the potential for a banking crisis gathered strength as the KRE ETF fell another 7.7% month to date. So the KRE is the small and medium bank or regional bank ETF. And for the whole year, they are actually down about 40%. So that goes to tell you that the banking crisis is far from over. And meanwhile, Morgan Stanley, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America fell 16.5%, 15%, 13.6%, and 24% year to date, respectively, on 25th October. So right now, it's eating into the big banks. In fact, the Bank of America could be one of the could be the Humpty Dumpty of the major banks, because yesterday I saw a report that its credit default swap, or CDS, have risen to the highest among all the major banks, and is on a very precarious position, because there's also rumors that Bank of America has heavily shorted the precious metal market, and they are actually in a short position of close to 1 billion ounces of silver. So there's a lot of unfavorable rumors with regard to Bank of America. So that's the bank to watch out that could bring down the other major banks. The other bank, of course, is Citibank. So again, we say that CPI in US would remain high, and it came out higher than expected, rising 0.4% month on month in September and 3.7% year on year. Now, the subprime US auto loan delinquencies are rising, which we predicted that the amount of that the number of delinquencies in the US would continue to rise. Previous month, we talked about the credit card delinquencies among those banks that are not in the top 100. And this month, we talked again about delinquencies regarding auto loan. And it has reached at the levels that have that is so high than other periods, including the prior record of 6% reached in October 1996. Okay, so it's much higher where the subprime auto loans are concerned. Now, the US never changed. Previously, the housing bubble, they have this subprime mortgage, then it shift to the auto industry. And right now, they are back to subsidizing, okay, the home purchases. For example, recently the new home sales actually skyrocketed. I think it went up about 12% month on month, which is very high. But what it entails is that the developers or home builders would be subsidizing the interest for the mortgage for a fixed period, for let's say maybe 1-2 years or so on. Could be a few years, but very short term. So then the people start to buy the homes because it's cheap, because the developers are subsidizing. So what happened is that once that subsidy ends, they have to revert to a much higher mortgage payment, and that would eventually result in another subprime mortgage. And in some states, they are even saying that that's reducing the amount of deposit that is required, okay, to buy a home. Especially one particular state is very interesting. The rich people will be taxed higher, and then that tax will be used to pay for the deposit of the homes so that the lower income people can buy. So I think, it's like, everything is gone haywire in the US. And the other thing is that we also predicted that the UAW, or the Union of Auto Workers in the US, walkout would hit certain lines of production in the US, and they actually walked out from the most profitable SUV and pickup truck plants in Arlington and Michigan. So we predicted that the Eurozone manufacturing PMI would be weak, and yes, it dropped from 43 to 4 to 43. So it's very deep in negative territory. So Eurozone energy prices are also trending up right now. And the far-right AfD party in Germany won in Bavaria and Hesse elections. Far-right and Eurosceptic Swiss People Party, SVP, came out as the clear leader in Switzerland's national elections, and pro-Russian politician Robert Fico won the Slovakia elections. So in our prediction, if you look back, we actually say that far-right parties will actually gain popularity in Europe because Europe right now is going down the drain. They are supporting wars, supporting the genocide in Palestine, and a lot of people are very, very fed up. If you look at if you have Twitter, YouTube, or social media, everyone is showing all the protests across Europe against the genocide in Palestine. So again, we predicted that China would be on a good footing. China GDP in Q3 rose 4.9% year on year, while the GDP in January to September rose 5.2%. China's PMI for manufacturing sector came in at 50.2 in September, bouncing back to the expansion zone, while the PMI for non-manufacturing sector came in at 51.7. And China's retail sales was up 6.8% year on year in September. China's country value added, actually, just delete this. China's value-added industry output rose 4% year on year in the first 3 quarters. So we expected shipbuilding, combat aircraft orders, and EV exports to power the industrial output, and this will continue. So let's look at what's in store for what actually happened in the US where it comes to the economic indicators. US Q3 GDP came in at 4.9%, and this could put pressure on the Fed to hike. Now that 4.9% of course sounds very strong, and one person, Steve San Angelo, actually did a calculation. Well, it's enabled, in a way the GDP has been enabled. Why? Because during the same month, US debt increased by 865 billion versus the 266 billion GDP that was recorded. It is like the debt increased by 3.1%. I mean, sorry, not 3.1%. The debt increased by more than 300% to produce $1 of GDP. So that GDP came in because government borrowed a lot of money and spent the money to create the GDP. But every dollar created, they actually have to spend $3.15, if I'm not wrong. So it has much to do with increase in debt. So which is why, you know, it puts the Fed in a very difficult position, because by right, if they want to cut inflation, it has to be high interest rate plus reduce government spending. But government spending never reduced. So whatever the Fed does is negated by the increase in government spending. And that is why it will be a tough sell for the Fed to bring it down to the 2% inflation rate that they projected. Now, the CPI came in at 0.4% month on month in September, and year on year grew 3.7%, unchanged from August. So core CPI came in at 0.3% month on month in September. Year on year, it grew 4.1%, down from 4.3% in August. But the core CPI remains very sticky, above 4%. And PPI came in at 0.5% month-on-month in September. Year-on-year, it gained 2.2%, up from 1.6% in August. Now, PPI is the Producer's Price Index. And if, let's say, the PPI continue to come in higher, what they have to do then is to park the cost back to the consumer, okay? So previously, the PPI was very low. In fact, at some point in time, it actually fell below zero. So what happened is that the producers were able to produce a lot of goods at a cheaper rate. And right now, those goods are being sold in the market. But when it comes to replenishment of inventory, with the PPI coming up much higher, that means the cost of production will also become higher. And if they need to cover their margins, then probably they have to increase the cost of the product, which will then pass back to the consumer, and that would then result in a much higher CPI. So retail sales came in at 0.7% in September. Year-on-year, it gained 3.8%. Net retail sales less CPI was 0.1%. So industrial production rose 0.3% month-on-month in September. Year-on-year, it grew 0.29%. And then HB index came in at 40 in September, down from 45 in August. Now, the ongoing rise in mortgage rates put a damper on builders' confidence. Now, the NAHB index is a home builders' confidence index. So previously, it was very high, then it started to come down. Right now, it's at 40. So it means that home builders are less confident about the housing sector in the US. So housing starts plunged 4.4% month-on-month in September, while housing permits rose 7%. Existing home sales plunged 2% month-on-month in September, and year-on-year it fell 15.3%. Now, existing home sales keep on decreasing because a lot of people who have bought their homes much earlier at much lower mortgage rates, they are not going to sell their homes. So there are fewer second-hand homes that is available to be sold. And that is why the new housing sales, new home sales actually shot up, because people will still look for bargains. And then that's when the developer came in, by subsidizing the purchase. Now, the Conference Board of Leading Economic Indicators continue its decline in September, dropping 0.7% month-on-month. Now, year-on-year, the LEI is down 7.8%, close to its biggest year-on-year drop since 2008 global financial crisis and outside of the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can see whenever there's a sustained drop in the LEI, it always comes with a major recession. Now, the longer the duration of the drop, here we can see, okay, this is the global financial crisis. So the duration was much longer. And right now, this duration is really longer than the COVID duration. So if it keeps on dropping for longer, that means that the recession will continue to last longer when it happens.
This correlate with the image of breaking apart also.
Yeah,
It's going down.
yeah. So then the other thing is that the housing crisis may be triggered by Airbnb. And this was an article which goes to show that falling occupancy plus high interest payment on loan or debt plus slowing economy is a disaster for Airbnb property owners. And recently, some people have been sharing their Airbnb so-called invoice. The rate is very low, but then they have a lot of built-in things like cleaning service, like taxes and all those. So eventually it becomes very, very expensive. And right now there's a trend whereby, because the homeowners are very heavily indebted, okay, those people who rent out Airbnb, they not only have the installment in terms of mortgage debt, but they also have credit card debt. They also have auto loan, okay, and they are more and more people are losing their jobs where what we call full-time jobs. In fact, full-time jobs in US has been falling and is being replenished, okay, or replaced with part-time jobs. But every one of us know, sometimes you need 2 or 3 part-time jobs to actually compensate for a full-time job. So because of this, a lot of Airbnb owners are actually quite desperate right now, because when and Airbnb is like, the stock price have collapsed so much already, okay, and right now people are returning back to hotel. And why is starting to be a turn off for people who rent Airbnb is that the more the homeowners are unable to manage their so-called monthly installment, the less they will do on things like maintaining the property. So
Yeah.
sometimes people who check into the property, they are very pissed off with the condition of the property. And because the owners sometimes have to do part-time jobs, when the moment they go there, any problem, they cannot reach the owners. So that is why right now there's a trend to go back into the hotel, and that's why we see Airbnb stock, collapse so much. And what is worrying is that during the past few months, okay, we have seen a drastic drop in the change in housing price. Okay, that change is like, in several tens of thousands of dollars. So if let's say, the homeowners cannot sustain any longer because, everything is getting more expensive. They're also mired in other types of debt. Then they have to force to sell. Then we could see a housing crisis. So the other thing is the long-term or long-dated US treasuries. We look at the 10-year, 20-year, and 30-year. So over the last 3 months, the 10-year yield has risen from 3.95% to 4.86%, a 23% increase in yield. 20-year yield has risen from 4.21% to 5.2%, which is a 23.5% increase in yield. And 30-year yield has risen from 4.21% to 5%, a 24.7% increase in yield. So for those of you who are aware of the bond market, higher the yield means lower the bond price. So because the yield is increasing, it will also increase the US borrowing cost. So by the end of Q4, US borrowing cost will likely hit more than 1 trillion. Why? Because at the end of Q3, total US interest on debt reached 981.3 billion. Now, previously, the biggest expensive item in the US spending was military, okay, about 870 billion. Right now, just serving the interest is 981.3 billion. And with another quarter to go, the full year would definitely exceed 1 trillion. But if we base on an average interest of 5% and the current debt of 33.67 trillion, the borrowing cost will be at least 1.68 trillion in 2024. Now, that is the interest payment that the US government have to pay based on 5% average yield on 33.67 trillion, provided no additional debt is added throughout 2024. But that is not possible because the US have no money to pay off any maturing debt, okay? They have every maturing debt has been borrowed against and paid for. That is why that debt continues to run higher and higher. So the US is in a technical default in if we want to put it in a much blunt manner. So what could happen in November? A lot hinges on the scope of conflict in the Middle East. A direct US involvement in the Middle East war will cause the following. Now, oil price will rise further, resulting in higher inflation. In fact, Libya has announced that it will place an embargo on all its oil export to Europe. And I believe that there will be more Arab nations among the GCC, among the GCC group that could announce oil embargo against Israel as well as to Europe, or maybe even to the US. So that could actually set off something similar like what happened in the 1970s. And the dollarization will intensify, and US Treasury will rise as Biden admin needs to fund the war. So then, because the US is technically bankrupt, so what if, let's say it wants to wage a war, then it will have to secure even more debt, okay? And that would actually trigger more people to distrust the US dollar. So that's why the dollarization would intensify as a result. And the DXY could rise in response to the rise in yields, but gold and silver will rise in tandem as the ultimate safe haven. So because in terms of geopolitical strife, normally people would rush to the US dollar as a safe haven. But I think the US dollar is, is positioned as a safe haven right now is also being challenged, because you can see as soon as the incident happened last week, gold price have actually risen quite substantially. And the US stock market will take a hit as it is risk off the table. And the other thing is that I believe more treasuries will be issued to fund a gaping budget deficit, even more so if, let's say, there's a war involved. And the rise in GDP could encourage the Fed to sneak in a 25 BPS hike in November, but this could cause further breakage in the system. So at the end, the Fed have to weigh, okay, whether to risk that 25 BPS hike or face a financial turmoil. Now, possible breakage in the financial system hitting the small and medium-sized banks and weakness among the big banks is revealed. Now, this is another factor which could force the Fed to withhold hiking. So the Fed need to consider this too. Either one of these could happen in November. And I would believe that the Fed would not hike if based on current scenario, because the banks are already very, very weakened. Okay, they do not want to do something that would cause a deluge of selling on the banks, which could actually cause more loss of confidence in the banks. But if, let's say, the Fed announced that it won't hike, then we will see commodities taking off. So Fed may be forced to intervene as borrowing costs spiral out of control. In fact, Zoltan Pozsar has hinted of a possible YCC, or yield curve control, which means the Fed would want to control the yield of long-term dated treasuries, okay, so that the yield of long-term debt falls, okay. Now, if, let's say, the Fed does this, then they will follow the footsteps of the BOJ. If they follow the footsteps of the BOJ, who have been doing yield curve control for almost 2 decades, you can see where the yen is right now, okay? At the end, no matter what the Fed does, it will weaken the US dollar. Now, the other thing is that we can expect more delinquencies among consumers, especially auto loans and credit card loans. And there'll be more bankruptcies that will be announced. Now, this is the US bankruptcy filing, okay? And you can see that it is pushing towards this peak here, which was in the period during the COVID pandemic. So if, let's say, it push past this, then it could mean more banks would be in trouble. Now, economic indicators in Europe, German manufacturing PMI came in at 40.7 in October versus 39.6 in September, while services PMI came in at 48 versus 50.3 a month ago. So services weakened, but manufacturing saw an uptick. France manufacturing PMI came in at 42.6 in October versus 44 in September. While services PMI came in at 43.9 versus 44.4 a month ago. So where France is concerned, there is weakness. Now, if you remember, for those who have joined us for a very long time, a few months ago, I mentioned that with so much protest in France, sooner or later the economy will be hit. And UK manufacturing PMI came in at 45.2 in October versus 44.3 in September, while services PMI came in at 49.2 versus 49.3 a month ago. So UK is not too bad, but Germany and France is pretty bad. Now, these three economies are still in major contraction. So inevitably, it shows Europe heading towards a recession because PMI is a survey that tells what could happen in the following month. So you can see that it has breached a level where previously has indicated a recession. So EU CPI came in at 4.3% year-on-year in September, down from 5.2% in August. UK CPI was unchanged year-on-year in September. Now, Eurozone energy prices are trending up again, and retail sales are trending down. So that is showing you that as the winter months approach, the energy cost is increasing again. And over here, Eurozone retail sales has continued to decelerate. So that means that Europe economy is in a very, very bad shape. And what could happen to Europe in November? Now, inflation could see a revival as prices of energy increase. Furthermore, many analysts are expecting that ECB is done hiking interest rates and expected rate cuts as early as Q1 2024. Against a backdrop of rising energy costs, but not hiking, that would probably result in further inflation. So the ECB, BIS, and IMF will look for more causes to justify the implementation of CBDC in Europe. For those who actually follow what happens in Europe, there has been a lot of news about implementation of CBDC. So that is the central bank digital currency. Now, the ESG agenda faces a setback as the cost of operating wind farms skyrockets. So actually, if those of you who are actually interested, you can join the Bursa webinar, which I will talk about energy on Wednesday. Okay, and I also talk a bit about renewable. Basically, renewable energy is very, very costly. Okay, so a number of wind farms have gone bust, and Siemens is asking for more subsidies to continue operating the wind farms in Germany. So more countries in Europe, therefore, will opt for nuclear power. So Europe PMIs will remain in contraction due to the deindustrialization, risk of recession mount. And more anti-war and far-right parties will emerge victorious in local elections or rise in popularity. Slovakia has announced it will no longer provide military aid to Ukraine. And those kind of anti-war and anti-immigrant sentiment will rise across Europe and leading to frequent clashes between locals and immigrants. In fact, if you see on the social media, there's a lot of fight breaking out in Italy and in France, where there's a lot of disagreement between the immigrants from Africa and the local population.
Yeah, I'm busy. I think this one will escalate even higher in November.
Yeah, and in fact, some people are saying that this Israel and Palestine war, okay, has reached a crescendo whereby there are far right people against the immigrants, and it is even made worse because of the media in the US. They are saying that because of the US open borders, they are encouraging more foreigners to come in and they could be potential terrorists. So that is why I think the mainstream media in the in the West has already gone down the rabbit hole. Okay. Um, you know, I'm sure most of you have watched a lot of the rings. Um, Anyone remember Grandma One Tongue? If yes, just type a Y. Okay. Anyone remember the character of Grandma Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings movie?
Oh, I also forgotten.
Now,
And the
Grandma
short guy,
Wormtongue,
the short guy, is it?
yeah, the short guy.
The
The short
dwarfs?
guy,
Yeah, one of the dwarfs. Yeah.
not the dwarfs. He is the advisor to the king of Rohan.
Oh,
And he
okay.
has been poisoning his mind
Oh,
so that he feels weak, and
huh.
therefore he feels himself very weak and is no longer the king that he used to be until Gandalf came uh, and show him that Grandma Wormtongue has been poisoning his mind.
Oh,
Now that's
okay,
what the
okay.
Western mainstream media is. Now I know the Lord of the Rings like the back of my hand because I think I read it 4 or 5 times already.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the Western media is like this grandma worm okay, poisoning the minds of people. That's why, people, that's why the US population is the most propagandized population. They Everything they listen from the mainstream media, they immediately think you know, it must be true because you know they they only show what they want them to see. Okay, so that's why right now, they are saying things, okay, that already cast suspicion on people who came in peacefully, but when you cast that suspicion, then there is civil strife. So that's why certain areas can break into a full inter-class clash or interracial clash, okay, which is very bad for their economy. But the mainstream media, the Western mainstream media especially, have a role to play in that. So that is why I think, when you start poisoning minds, everything, becomes evil in their eyes. Okay. And yesterday, we have this dear President Trump says that if anyone kill any Americans, we will come and kill you. And
Oh,
if anyone spill a drop of blood of Americans, we will spill a gallon. I mean, come on, you are the president of the US. You are behaving like the
um,
cowboys
yeah,
of
like
the
gangster.
1800s.
Yeah, like the
Yeah,
gangster,
yeah,
the tribes.
so yeah, it's like there's no sensibility. It's just like as long as they talk like this and the crowd, you know, are brainwashed and they cry for this, then that's what you're going to have. It's just like last time he blamed everything on China. So everyone starts to hate Chinese.
Ah, yeah.
So, you cannot have a leader like this when people are very susceptible to emotions here, then they become supercharged by your statement. When we become supercharged by your statement, they see everything in their eyes as evil. So that's why I think the US is, and a greater part of Europe is on its way down the gutter because of politicians and the poisonous mainstream media.
Maybe he do it on purpose. I would think so because actually in period 9, people's emotion will be very much unstable. So he's also playing this card.
Yeah, I mean, he like he I mean he runs casino lah, so I think he behaves like a mafia also. you know. Anyway, back to China. GDP came in at 4.9%, as we mentioned. From January, September, rose 5.2%. CPI was unchanged year on year in September and up 0.2% month on month from August. Core CPI came in at 0.8% year on year in September, unchanged from August. So right now, um, I hope some of you would go to my Facebook page and read what I've written just before this webinar about Chinese Treasury holding of US Treasury has fallen. So there are a lot of people saying, oh, China is panicking, because the yuan has devalued against the US dollar. So they are selling US Treasury to get the US dollar to defend the yuan or defend the renminbi. These are all pure nonsense. The only time when any country needs to sell US dollar to defend the local currency is when that country is having hyperinflation. Okay? China didn't raise interest rate. China is cutting interest rate. China is not facing hyperinflation because their inflation is so low, much lower than the US. And if, let's say, prices are low, it's even better for the economy. Okay. So PPI came in at 0.4% month-on-month in August. Year-on-year, it declined 2.5%. So PPI, the producers are facing lower costs. So that's why there's no need to hide any costs. And that is why inflation in China would remain very low. Retail sales came in at 6.8% year-on-year in September, up from 4.6% in August. Industrial output came in at 4% year-on-year in September, up from 4.5% in August. Services sector gained 6% year-on-year during the period from January to September 2023. Now, China fixed asset investment went up 3.1% year-on-year during the period from January to September 2023. And fixed asset investment is actually pretty low because, again, it has a lot to do with the real estate. And because of that, most of the investment are actually coming from the government in terms of investment in infrastructure. China's survey urban unemployment rate stood at 5.3% in September, down from 5.2% in August. So which means the unemployment rate has fallen 0.1% lower. Now, the PMI for manufacturing came in at 50.2 in September. PMI for non-manufacturing sector is 51.7 in September. So, China foreign trade volume reached 3.74 trillion in September, registering month-on-month growth for a second consecutive month. Now, previously, when China reopened during the early part of 2023, after almost the second half of 2022 was closed because of a lot of COVID lockdown and so forth. When China reopened, the foreign trade volume actually went up very high, but then subsequently it started to deteriorate. But right now it's back up again. And in the first 3 quarters, China's goods imports and export edged down 0.2% to 30.8 trillion. Now, the country exports increased 0.6% year-on-year, while imports dipped 1.2%. During the period, China's trade with countries participating in the Belt and Road Initiative amounted to 14.32 trillion, up 3.1% year-on-year, and accounting for 46.5% of the country's total foreign trade value. So you can see that the Belt and Road is pushing China towards Central Asia and also to the Middle East. And that is why, China's trade with Europe and the US, while still ongoing, has not reached the kind of level that it used to be. Also because both of the countries are, especially Europe, is facing severe slowdown. So that's why China is pushing its products, okay, to the eastern side, okay, which means more towards the Central Asia and Middle East. Now, China's per capita disposable income was 29,398 renminbi in the first 3 quarters, up 6.9% year-on-year in nominal terms. After deducting price factors, per capita disposable income rose 5.9% from the previous year. So that's why sometimes in the Western nation, the Fed or even the BOJ say we need to have 2% inflation, no matter what. But the thing is, if let's say prices are low, inflation is down, that disposable income will actually increase because of low inflation. Okay, but if inflation is high, when you cost in the inflation, your real disposable income could maybe be negative. So that's one thing I don't understand, why they keep on pushing that there need to be 2% inflation. Okay. Now, there's continued weakness in Chinese real estate. New home price in China's four first-tier cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, were flat month-on-month in September. On a year-on-year basis, new home prices in the first-tier cities rose just 0.7% in September. However, new home prices in more than half of 70 surveyed cities, which include the four first-tier cities, maintained a downward trend in September. The data showed that 45 cities reported year-on-year drops in new home prices in September, up from 44 in August. Data also revealed that prices of new homes in 31 second-tier cities and 35-tier cities edged down 0.3% in September compared to August. So you see here, this is a chart of Chinese real estate. You can see that it has fallen very, very steeply. But at the same time, high-tech manufacturing, which is batteries, photovoltaic panels, chips, smartphones, and heavy industrial manufacturing, auto, ship, and aircraft, help to offset the decline in real estate investment. So industry is picking up for the GDP, okay, but real estate is coming down, which is also in trend with what the Chinese president has said, that houses are for living and staying, not for speculation. But I believe that today and tomorrow, the Chinese government is in a meeting to look at ways to strengthen the financial market in China. So there could be some stimulus to encourage housing, at least, okay, to have more people buying new homes, young people buying buying new homes to start a family, more than allowing for multiple speculation. So we see what comes out at the end of the day tomorrow. Now, China economic growth. Foreign direct investment stood at 919 billion from January to September 2023, a decrease of 8.4% year-on-year. The decline was due to the slow pace of the global economic recovery and the high base recorded in the prior year. FDI in manufacturing rose 2.4% year-on-year, with that in high-tech manufacturing up 12.8%. During the period, FDI from France, UK, and Canada surged by 121%, 116%, and 109% respectively. Now, during the period, 37,000 new foreign invested firms were set up across the country, up 32.4% year-on-year. So you can see that, money flow has been reduced because of, I think also because of the economic climate, okay? And it's because of the high interest rate, it is very difficult for foreign firms to borrow from their country and invest into China. So that is why the funds flow have also been reduced. But if you look at it, the number of foreign firms that are interested to do business in China actually increased 32.4% year-on-year, which I think in the long term will actually cultivate more enterprises, more growth in the respective industry. So China's electricity consumption climbed 9.9% year-on-year, to 781 billion kilowatt hours in September. Power consumption by primary industry increased 8.6% year-on-year, while power consumption by secondary and tertiary sectors gained 8.7% and 16.9% respectively. Residential power usage saw a year-on-year increase of 6.6%, and from January to September 2023, the country's electricity consumption rose 5.6% from a year earlier to 6.86 trillion kilowatt hours. So there's a lot of things here about what industry does what, but at the end of the day, when they average it out, this 5.6% closely relate to the 5.2% of GDP growth from the period of January to September. So sometimes if you look at the power consumption matched back against the GDP, you'll be surprised that they are quite closely linked together. Now, China's shipbuilding industry in Q3 saw increase in output, new orders, and holding orders, ranking first in the world. In fact, China has overtaken South Korea as the major shipbuilding hub. The country's shipbuilding output hit 9.61 million dry weight ton during this period, increasing 3.3% year-on-year. New orders and another significant indicator of the shipbuilding industry rose 98.9% year-on-year to 19.67 million deadweight ton, while the sector's holding orders total 133.93 million deadweight ton. So you can see new orders already rose 98.9%. So that is why the industry will continue to power ahead. China's vehicle sales rose 9.5% year-on-year to nearly 2.86 million units in September. During the first 9 months, vehicle production and sales grew 7.3% and 8.2% year-on-year. Production and sales of new energy vehicles surged 33.7% and 37.5% in the first 3 quarters, respectively. So you can see that China right now, okay, is the world's largest auto exporter. Not only manufacturing, exporter. Okay, yeah, they have beaten Japan, and
especially with their electric cars or new energy and EVs.
Yeah, because they have already, moved into the Southeast Asia, and the demand is very strong in Southeast Asia.
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
Recently I saw the BYD SUV. It's actually very nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but then Malaysia's charging is a problem, I guess, because not all the stations are equipped with charging facilities. So traveling could be a challenge.
Yeah, another thing is lithium battery power car. You have to be very careful because it's like our handphone slowly it will deteriorate because so far there's no technology yet to sort of increase the lifespan, because the surface, keep on charging, the electron is moving, so the electrodes, it will slowly deteriorate the electrode structures. And this is when the lithium battery will design. And then Malaysian weather is very hot. Is also a danger, especially.
Yeah. So we will see how is it. But I think right now the next level of batteries is actually sodium solid state battery.
It's still the same. It's still the same. You have to migrate electrons between positive and negative electrodes.
Yeah. But they realize that without lithium, the performance is lower.
Definitely. It has already done. The chemistry study has already been done, because having worked with the lithium battery supply for so many years, nothing will beat the superiority of lithium. That is already the range of the this one. The study has been done from the very past. Even research from the university and all these things shows that lithium is still, because lithium is a very reactive metal. Even you put water also, it will release the electron already. That's what makes it so superior. But they are also like time bomb.
Yeah. So that's why even though they say they use sodium solid state, they still need to have lithium to match back that kind of efficiency.
Yeah, because you have to release electron fast, in order to design. What is the best metal to release electron? Is those that are very highly reactive type one, like lithium.
So unless we move into they can actually miniaturize the nuclear reactor, okay.
That could be a way
But we are actually scaling down. We no longer need to build those multi-billion dollars kind of nuclear reactors. We are the world right now is moving towards small modular reactors, which can actually power an industrial property rather than. But then gradually we'll scale it down. Then we have uh, miniature nuclear reactor for transportation for trucks. Then we scale it down further for cars maybe. But that's an interesting thing.
Actually there's a possibility in period 9. It's stated that chemical energy will be one of the things. So and also actually if you have nuclear reactors in modular format, so I think it will be very good for China, because the grids it will be able to power up the grids, smaller grids.
Yeah. In fact, China already built its own SMR. But
Okay.
another thing is that they are developing thorium reactor. Now, thorium is actually the best solution, better than the nuclear reactor,
Mm.
because thorium you can actually use it to generate power in the desert without needing water.
Okay.
And the reason why nuclear reactor needs to have a water
You
base is
need to
because
cool down.
it needs to cool down, and then
Yeah.
it needs to release the energy.
Yeah.
And on top of that, water can then be recycled to be used as hydrogen. So the other thing is hydrogen fuel cell. So that's why we are going to enter in. I think period 9 is going to be interesting because there are multiple platforms, okay,
Mm.
that can change, alter the dynamic of a certain
Yes.
industry.
Yes.
Let's say that after 2030, okay, lithium would be less, but then there'll be more hydrogen fuel cells. Okay, that could also happen.
Yeah.
But that is one thing that could happen. And just like in terms of silicon chip, okay, we may not have silicon chip, we may have graphene chip, or we have actually a new material, okay,
Or new
that may
substrate material. Yeah.
yeah, that will be able to play the base material for the chip. But they are
Mm.
also looking at graphene, okay?
Mm.
But
Mm.
the challenge in graphene is that how do you manufacture something that is based on a single atom layer? Now, that is a very interesting thing to look at,
Mm.
because graphene will definitely handle higher temperature better than silicon.
Mm.
It's more conductive for electrons,
Mm.
uh, but how to process
It's good
based on
for,
single
yeah.
layer of atom.
Then it will be good for quantum computing.
Yeah, yeah.
They are all integrated, related.
In fact, the next stage of AI will not be silicon chips. It could be in quantum computing already.
Mm. Yeah,
You know.
that's right.
Yeah. So a lot of interesting development over the next 10 years, I think.
Mm.
So China, what could happen in November? China's economy will likely remain strong in November. Domestic travel and consumption continue to remain robust. Now, recently, government announced an increase in its deficit spending from 3% to 3.8%, and this would free up another 1 trillion into the economy. Now, I sometimes hear people say, oh, China, that is terrible. China is just following US footstep. Okay, US is printing US dollar to finance the war. Okay, and finance its economy. China is doing almost the same thing, printing renminbi to buy commodities, stockpiling. Okay, so those are more important assets, okay, than waging war. So, but China's debt, foreign debt, in terms of US dollar, is actually quite low, uh, on the government side. Okay, they don't issue a lot of US-based debt. Companies, yes, that's why we have like Evergrande, Country Garden, all this coming into problems, because they were a major part of their investors are actually people from BlackRock, Vanguard, all the major banks. Okay, that encourage them to issue US debt so that they can use that debt to snowball, to speculate on the real estate to push up the prices and so forth. So that's why China refused to build them up, because it's, the whole US dollar, and it's up to those people who encourage that kind of speculation to bear the cost. But where China is concerned, they just print and then they just improve its own economy. But I think both sides are actually buying time. I think eventually China would go for a semi-gold-backed currency as the BRICS develop into maturity. And that's why China right now is increasingly stockpiling its commodities. So China's PMIs are likely to see an expansion in November due to the stimulus. EVs export will continue to power ahead in November as the major producers expand their footprint aggressively overseas. China heavy industry will continue to be robust, as we have seen from the data in the shipbuilding, okay, and also from the automotive industry. Real estate will remain sluggish, buyers to remain on the sideline. China's trade supplies will remain strong as trade with other countries, especially those under the BRI, continue to expand. Now, geopolitics, I think this is the hottest topic for tonight. Now, the current conflict in the Middle East could be an attempt by the US-led nations to destabilize the region to protect the petrodollar. And yesterday, the US already done about 50 airlifts from the US to the Middle East, bringing hardware and military equipment. And there are, if I'm not wrong, there are 3 carrier battle groups right now in the Middle East. Mediterranean Sea and some in the Red Sea, and there's news that some could actually move up to the Persian to the Strait of Hormuz. Now, all this is not done overnight, because within a week, because Hamas and Israel has a conflict. To move this amount of military equipment need many months of planning. Okay, it's just waiting for the trigger to set it up. So that's why I think whatever that's happening in the Middle East is a deliberate plan because of BRICS. Now, if you look at it, the conflict erupted soon after Saudi Arabia, Iran, and UAE are slated to join BRICS Plus. The announcement of a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the introduction of the petro yuan, or the because President Xi went to the GCC and said that you can start trading in renminbi. So from that period to now, okay, it takes many months. So that's why I believe that the conflict is initiated to give the US the excuse to move in that area to wage a war. And I think Lebanon, Syria, and Iran could be the target. Iran is very important because Iran is an important land bridge in the BRI and INSTC. In fact, for those of you who have bought our book, Unlock Your Wealth Potential, we talk a lot about the geopolitical scenario in the Middle East. Now, if Iran collapses, then the BRI and INSTC will also collapse. However, should Iran be attacked, Iran could do something which it has always boasted it can do. Block the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the global oil trade passes through. As you can see here, the Strait of Hormuz is very, very narrow. It is so narrow that all it needs to do is sink a few container ships, and then no one gets to cross the strait. Okay, so that is why now US keep on saying that we are there to deter other countries from involving in the Israel and Palestine conflict. That to me is BS. You wouldn't move dozens of warships, thousands of troops on standby in the Middle East, and squadrons of fighter jets on standby if you just want to deter. Okay, it is a war that they intend to wage. Because if they don't wage this war, I believe that it will be the end of the petrodollar. It will be the end of the US. because they strive on countries abiding by their rules-based international order. What is the rules-based international order? It's my rules and your order. Okay, so that's what it is all about.
Actually,
And
US has a lot of interest in the Middle East, to be very true.
yes, yeah, that is precisely the reason for the formation of Israel. Now,
Mm,
Israel was formed, I think, in 1947 by sponsored by the British and the US, UK and US, right in the midst of an oil-rich region. Is there any other reasons for it? Because, every war is a war for acquisition of resources, where the US is concerned.
mm.
Okay, or even the UK is concerned, because the UK used to wage war during the 19th century to become the world's largest empire. And that is because they can control the materials from Africa, the
Yeah,
materials from Asia.
the
Okay,
British
so
India Company.
yeah, so all this, the US and the UK, they have been waging war simply to control resources. But right now they see their control slipping away, so they need to make an example. And that example will be, I believe, to be Iran. But because Iran has strong ties, now Iran a few years back signed a $400 billion deal with China. And Iran actually has several Russian military air bases, okay, in its country. So I think both Russia and China knows if Iran falls, that will be the end of the BRI and INSTC. Now, why is Iran important in the scheme of things? Oil from Iran will be shipped to Gwadar port in Pakistan and transported to China via the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, from the Gwadar port. So all the oil will shift to the Strait of Hormuz, to Gwadar, and to Pakistan, and then to Kashgar in China. And this area is a place called Baluchistan, I think, which has a very strong anti-Chinese sentiment. And of course, they are sponsored by the US. That's why there's always terrorist attack over here to disrupt the BRI. And just as the reason why US has been in Afghanistan for a very long time, so that they can create terrorism activities in Xinjiang. Okay, so that is how the US wants to control the Eurasian continent by creating terrorist cells that wage war on its behalf. So in terms of the INSTC, oil from Iran will be transported overland via Azerbaijan and Russia to Europe. So this is how the INSTC will function. So from Iran through Azerbaijan all the way to Russia, and then from Russia to the rest of Europe. Now this will actually save a lot of shipping time. So that's why if Iran falls, then the BRI will collapse. The Russia INSTC will collapse. But even more so, if let's say Iran collapse, then there'll be no oil that is being able to ship overland to China, where China, in the face of a conflict with US, the US can always have the option to blockade the Straits of Malacca, and the oil will never get through. That was why the plan to hatch the BRI and the CPEC came through, to allow the oil to be transported overland through Pakistan into China. So if let's say Iran falls, that oil resource will be gone, just as the other oil reserves, oil resource from the rest of the Middle East. Where Russia is concerned, if Iran falls, then the US can actually create another war front on the southern side of Russia. So this is how the geopolitical game is being played. Now, what could happen? Now, immediate target seems to target Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and Iranian forces in the countries. Iran proxies in Iraq and Syria have started attacking US bases in the countries. US narrative seems to suggest that Iran could be a target. You can see from a lot of the mainstream media news right now, they are saying that Iran is the enabler. Now, Russia has military bases in Syria and Iran. China has announced it will support Iran's sovereignty. So these pieces are already set. Okay. Now, the motive of the US is clear. Otherwise, it will not move so many military assets to the region with its NATO allies. Let's correct the typo here. If war erupts, the US could face major funding issues as the borrowing cost skyrockets. If the war involves Russia and China, then we will age dangerously close to World War III. Now, Ukraine will be a forgotten war, and Russia will likely gain more territories. Russia's aim could be to link the Donbass and Transnistria via Odessa, and Ukraine will be landlocked as a result. If the war spread into other parts of the region, and let's say even to Lebanon and Syria, not to mention even Iran, oil and gold will rise. Oil because of its energy importance, and gold as the ultimate safe haven. So back to you, Evelyn.
Okay. So I will not change. Yeah, we just continue
Yeah,
to
just
use
continue
this.
from here.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, we
Yeah,
would like to thank everyone that has supported us on our book sharing, book launch event on Unlock Your Wealth Potential at Popular IPC and Gurney. And I hope that those who have bought our book will gain some insights into the next 5 years as well. Next page, BC. Next. Next page, BC. Okay. So we
okay.
have actually okay one more the page before this, I think, is it, this is next page. Oh, okay, before this ah um before some more, one more, back one more slides.
No, it's back to here.
Oh, back to here. Okay. So yeah, next slides. Okay, so this one, actually several forecasts in our book. Why summary? Go to the page where several forecasts of our book has already starts to come true. Further up, further up, further up, um, further up. Is it okay? Or never mind, it's okay. Let me share.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, let me share, but be better. Okay, let me share the screen. Yes. Okay, this one here. Share. Okay, can see my screen now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let me just put it, share. And I wanted to go to the, yes, I wanted to come here. Okay. So several forecasts on in our books, not even next year yet, is currently has already unfolding. For example, the US, Israel, the military strike on Iran and all these things, the Middle East conflicts, and also the flying taxis as well. And we would like to thank those that who bought our book and give us a very positive review in the online shopping. I think this one is Shopee, right? Yeah. Yeah, this
Yes,
one is
yes.
Shopee. Yes, that's right.
KLT's one is in MPH online.
Oh, okay. Then this one, the other one is Gavin one is on Shopee. Okay, those thanks very much. For those who are interested in this book, you can actually get a free chapter from here. So later on, I will drop the link. And then, okay, let's do a summary, a recap on today's topic. And then we have something to share with our members for the 2024 as well. So first of all, the summary is that economic downturn will escalate. Then people will be fighting for resources because there's so many, same elements in the chart. Itself then will be fighting for resources and wealth in the chart. So it will break through to the new era, and also the escalation of the war and inflation. And then over to you, PC, for your summary.
Yeah, I think the military conflict in the Middle East will likely worsen, as I said, because there's no reason to spend so much money to airlift so many military hardware and soldiers into the Middle East, and sending dozens of ships. So it's not going to turn out very well for the global economy. And it saddens me to see, because I on Twitter almost constantly see a lot of pictures of the destruction in Palestine. It's very, very sad, and I do sympathize with the peoples there facing such turbulent times. So now, eventually, this will uh, create more problems to the global economy as it battles a potential banking crisis, surging inflation, and weak growth. So stock market volatility will increase as investors head towards safe haven assets. And this we are already seeing. And US could face funding issues, especially in middle of November, that they will actually have another budget discussion. So probably they will kick the can further down the road until the next election. I think that's how the US behave. They keep on kicking and kicking because they can never even have a good budget, because ultimately it entails spending even more. And with this war, I think they will spend even more. And that is why confidence in the US dollar will constantly be challenged versus other safe assets like gold and silver. And anything that happens in the Middle East when there is a war will always be bullish for gold. So that's all.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Yeah, so we have also an announcement to make. Okay. So yeah, the announcement is that actually the good news is that we have already just published a new book, which is the Outlook on 2024, the Wood Dragon Year, Astrology and Global Trend Forecasts. Okay. And at the same time, we also has opened the 2024 Astrology and Global Trends membership here, where as usual, the benefits will be your foresights to enable you to make a better decision. Okay. And also potentially enhance your investment portfolio by selecting the right sector. Like this year, we have given a lot of focus or a lot of tips. So-called, I don't like to call that tips, but at least to give you a trend of what will be gaining attention. Okay, so
yeah,
yeah.
I would just like to add, like, we cannot give direct stock information or sharing that whether this is a buy or a sell. But as an example, like few months ago, when Huawei came out with the ProMate 60, uh, in in cooperation with SMIC, and they are able to do a 7 nanometer chip. So then I'll just say that SMIC is the major benefactor. And hopefully some of y'all did get my hint, okay, because today SMIC is already 20 over dollars. I think close to 20, 24, $24. When we talk about that, few months ago, it was below 20. Okay, these are the kind of things that we can share, okay,
Yeah,
without saying that go and buy this or buy that.
yeah, yeah. And actually, I don't like the word tips also, because tips is the one that costs a lot of people lost a lot of money. Okay, and then you will get the monthly content 2 weeks ahead now, before we release to the public, to the YouTube channel, and also you will get the PDF file of the monthly presentation as what you see now, and also a private Telegram group for Q&A. And I think PC also posted tons of information in the Telegram group as well. Those that are our members can validate that. Okay, so yeah, I hope that we give a very good membership experience to our members. Any feedback, our members here, can you just put it in the chat box? Appreciate that. So this year, because we everything it has increased, even the tax, the service charge, and everything. Even to publish the book itself is also, the cost has increased. So the ebook itself actually is in ebook format. I will give you a link where you can get this ebook. Okay, it's through an online publisher in US. So the ebook itself will cost about 8.99, I think, about 40 ringgit US dollars. And actually the membership is 168 as usual. If you bought the ebook, then the membership for 1 year, total of 12 months, which is only about $10 plus. Last year was even, because now everything has increased. So but we did not increase it that drastically. So for less than, I think Starbucks coffees now cost about 12, 13 ringgit, right? I'm not a coffee drinker, so I do not know how much does it cost. You can get no guidance of subject matter experts like us to help you to make a better decision in your investment. And but at least you will know that what are you supposed to avoid. Like for example, the banking sectors that we talk about is really it is something that try to avoid, because of the metal energy is not strong this year and it's been counter. Okay, so I will give you the link how to enroll. This is the form to enroll. After you buy the book, you can go to the form, fill in the details, then get a snapshot of a receipts. Then we will process the information and later on. Okay, so this is the link to get the book. I will, okay, let me just, so I will drop the link there also as well. Okay, so I now we are in Q&A session.